Hello, and welcome to Ramon Buenos, your one-stop channel for all things RC quilting and sometimes 3D printing. So today we're going to be starting part 2 of our ZYX-M build from Tarot, which is an advanced flight controller. And we saw in part 1 of this video how we confirm that we have a stable build using the KK 2.1 as the test flight controller to test to make sure that our quadcopter is flyable and fly ready before we move to the more advanced controller. Just because of the complexity of the new controller, it's easier to debug if we know that our airframe is working well and our radio is linking up properly. So we found that it did fly well. In fact, before you take the controller off, you may want to go outside and fly it a bit with the KK 2.1 to get a feel for its characteristics. Each quad, depending on the size, has a different feel to it. So you get kind of an idea of what it's like to fly the quad before you go to the more advanced controller card. And also these cards, the KK 2.1 and the CC3D, these will be the controllers that you're probably going to use if you get into racing. They're simple, they're reliable. They don't have the altitude hold and GPS, but those aren't features you're going to want when you're racing. It's about speed, responsiveness of the controller, and some of those other characteristics may be a hindrance. So let's start now part 2 of the Tarot build, ZYX-M build, by removing the KK 2.1 card. We're going to take it off, and I'm going to go into close-up mode so you can see my my coloring again. Just in case people aren't sure what I'm doing there, I just want to put that on there so people can see what's going on. And then we'll lay out the ZYX-M and then start the installation. So let's move into close-up and take a look at what we're taking off here. So let's take a closer look at taking off the KK 2.1. Take off these connectors for the speed controllers and for the receiver. Take these all off and just give this a good twist back and forth, and that will pop off the controller board and take off the extra plastic, the little sealer. Good, and we are done. So I want to take a closer look so you can see that I have the colored dots, the fabric marker I use to mark each of these pins. Then this is the motor side. So the blue corresponds to my front left. The white is my front right, and the rear, the two rears. And this is the coloring for the receiver, which is for throttle, aileron, elevator, and yaw. And keeping them standard from, you'll notice I'll highlight the coloring on all of my different controllers so that you can see that I am pretty consistent as I move forward. And also all my motor pins have different colors on them to correspond. This here blue goes to the front, the right, the left front, etc., etc. So I have everything marked in colors. Setting this aside now. Okay, now that we have the old KK 2.1 ripped off the frame, but we do know that everything flies well, let's take a look at the components that we're going to be installing with the Tarot ZYX-M. Now, in planning for this video, I've decided that I'm actually going to separate this into 2 parts as well. So we're going to talk about all the components, and I'll talk about the 2 parts. So the first thing we have is the Tarot unit, and you can see I've already plugged in my receiver. I've also colored where everything goes, so I'm kind of confident where, after reading the manual, what channel everything goes in. And you'll see from the setup software how you can determine where everything goes as well. This is the motor side, and that's marked. There is a USB connection, which comes in the kit, and that goes into the data USB plug. Really, everything seems to be fairly well installed. You don't need to have another adapter, so this is all included. This is the LED unit. This is what's going to be giving you the light signals as to what mode you're in, so you're ready to fly, as well as how good your GPS connection is. That comes on here. And this is the PMU, or the power management unit. This is an important part of the process, and you'll see that when we assemble it. One of the things that I've done, and I've really stuck to this, although it takes a little bit more work, is when I have one of these flight controllers that has a power management unit, I make sure that the only way that power is coming to this controller is through this power management unit, the PMU. You'll see that when we do put it on the actual quad, I will be disconnecting the power line from the speed controller so that no other power is coming to this unit. I don't know for sure, but anecdotally, I think I've had problems in the past, and I've had all my power coming from my speed controllers over here, and it was doing some sort of errant or unwanted activity. So I've been a lot happier by making sure that there's no other power other than what's coming from the unit that's supplied with the product. The other item that comes in the package is the GPS and compass, which is included. You have to be careful when you plug it into the unit. It's marked GPS here. It actually only goes in one way, but I could see someone forcing it in upside down, and you have to be very careful. There is actually special little tits on this here plug that ensures that it can only be plugged in one way. And I've also marked mine with the special coloring again to make sure that they match up accordingly, so that when I plug it in, it's ready to go. And this is the on-screen display, or the OSD. So what I've decided is that since there's so much involved in this install, I'm going to separate these two out so that there'll be a separate video dealing with the GPS and compass and the OSD separately, because I think if I try to cram everything in one video, it may become a little bit too overwhelming for for pros and for beginners, but I think it's better to do it in small steps. So for this here, part 2 part of the video, and I'll be doing a part 3, we're going to be focusing in on the controller. And when we don't have the compass and GPS unit attached, we will only have actually 2 modes, attitude mode and manual mode. And it'll be easier just to talk about those 2 rather than go into the other modes on this video. And also when we go into the setup component, it'll be a little bit easier. So with that in mind, we're going to just be dealing with the USB connection, the LED display, and we'll talk about what the lights mean for the manual and for the attitude control, and the power management unit. This here little output plug here, okay, it has an out 12 volt, this out going to the controller is only 5 volts. It has an output 12 volt. That's going to be used for the OSD in the next video. And this is the power inside, which will take anything from a 3-cell, I think it says 2-cell to 6-cell, but no more than a 6-cell, and the LED. And I've got all my cables connected. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go into close-up mode and install this on the quad, and then we're going to be hooking this up to a computer. Now before we move on with putting it onto the quad, there's one little thing that will be coming up later on in this video when we go into the initialization software, or the setup software, is that for the accelerometer setup, it needs to be off your quad. So I've already checked this out with the accelerometer, so I know that it's working fine. But if you need to set up the accelerometer, and we'll show it in the menu where you need to do it, you have to apply power to the PMU, connect it into your computer, just as we're going to do later on. It's the same process. The only thing you have to do is just keep it out, because when you calibrate that, you have to place this on all these funny little sides, and it's easier to do it when it's outside, off the quad. So one little step we'll talk about when we get to there is for setting up the accelerometer, you want to do it now rather than later. It's kind of hard for me to go back and forth all the time. So I'm just going to mention now that calibrating the accelerometer you would do now, but you're not going to know it until you actually hook it onto the computer. So let's move ahead and let's install it on the system and look at the setup software. Okay, now that we have brought our quad back online and starting to get ready for the install, as I mentioned previously, I've taken the power out from the Q-brain. There is one of these connections that have the red power wire. I've now put a bit of shrink wrap on top of that, and I'm going to shrink that down so it doesn't come off, and somehow connect it to something that I don't want it to. So yeah, so I've taken the power out. As I mentioned, I only want the power going to this unit from the PMU, the power management unit. Sometimes, depending on the controller, they're going to call it a PSU, and you'll see later on that each company has a different name. Scissors, clip a bit of this excess off of the shrink wrap, but I have that power now nicely covered up, and so now all I have coming from the ESCs are the signal wires. Now we have, when we look at the PMU, and I'm going to unplug everything. Okay, when we have our controller unit on, you can see that there's an arrow pointing towards the front of the machine, okay, and that's where the receiver goes. I'm just going to put that there with Velcro. And I'm not going to put this down too fixed, because I'm going to be doing, you're going to see later on in the setup, for the software setup, there's actually a screen that will allow us to do fine adjustments as to where this is located on the quad. That is important when we're using the auto landing and the return to home, as well as the location of the GPS unit. The kit did not come with a GPS stand, so I went out and bought a second one. This was from Banggood. This is a little foldable stand to put my GPS on. I found that strange, since it's always better to have your GPS up, but that'll be on the next video. Okay, back to this. I digress. So this is where this is going to go, and I'm just going to put one of my little stickies on at this date and time, just to hold it. It'll hold it in place for what we want to do now, and then as we move through the process, I will begin to actually tie wrap these things in place so that they don't move at all. Man, these things stick. I just stick one on the bottom, frontwards, and there's an arrow there. I want to put that on like so, to the best that I can, as it's centered into the quad as possible. Again, we really don't want, we want this as close to the center as possible, because when it's off, the internal control functions will think that the center is at that point of where it is, and it's gonna, it could funny ways of centering everything. So it may not land level, it could land on a bit of an angle. We're trying to keep this as much in the center as possible. So now I have that attached. I can now put my wires in, and unlike the KK 2.1 that had the motor 1 here, this is motor 1. My M1 is the white. So again, I haven't changed my colors, I just change where I plug things in. So my white goes on the first. It goes in this direction, 1, 2, and then 3. So it goes counterclockwise starting up here. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll just follow the sequence. And the next one is blue. So every one of these controllers we're going to talk about have a different numbering sequence for the motors. I'm probably going to have to zip tie that down anyway, just to keep it from, because it's wanting to twist. Q brains in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add our power unit, our PMU, and I'm going to put the PMU right here. I put Velcro on the back, and this is the end that goes to the battery. And I already have, I use the XT60s, and I always add on some JST plugs, and it always comes in handy. Since this already came with JST on it, I always have 2 JST, or at least 1 JST on my plug, just for extra power. And then I plug in the power supply, the 5-volt power supply, into the controller up to, it's over here, LED power, green, and I marked it, and it goes over here. It's marked power 5 volt, and that's already marked. The next item I need is my LED. I just kind of click that onto the front here a bit, and I will put these in better shape later. Put this underneath, and this is going to where it says LED OSD, and that's marked in. I have that marked as a color as well. Okay, so I have that installed, and finally the last thing I need to install is the USB connection, because we need to connect it up to our computer to configure it before we can actually fly. And that goes into the port called data/USB. Okay, so, and I don't need to fix this USB down. Once we're done our setup, this whole thing can come off. It doesn't need to stay on your quad at all. So that's why I'm not wiring that down. So I'm just going to zip tie these things in place, and then we're actually going to go up and connect it to the computer, and we'll take a look at the setup. Okay, now that we've attached our flight controller to our quadcopter and have it all wired up, we're now going to go through the setup routines using their assistant software. And I've already gone through the process and downloaded all the drivers, so that the controller is now, the software will now work with my USB port. And I found I had no problems when I followed their instructions, which is kind of unusual because I find a lot of times many companies will have outdated information, and it doesn't work with the latest software. These instructions work with both Windows 7 and Windows 10, so I was quite happy that I had very little problems in getting this connected. So now that I'm connected to my controller, I'm going to show you what I did in the setup. It really isn't that hard. It really is a good product from that standpoint. The very first page you get into is called the View, and this gives you the overall setup of your flight controller, motor idle speed, all your sticks. Now I've already connected up the radio and calibrate it, but we'll go through it again so you get to see what happens. So this is the main screen. Most of what you're going to be doing though is over in basic, and you're going to start with your aircraft type. You can see I've already selected the X-copter, but you could select the quad rotor 1 or whatever Y. There's so many different configurations. Not many, 9 configurations. And every time you make a change, make sure you write the flash to the device, so it will save all your changes. This is the time now that you're going to go into your motor test. So select motor test, and then read their warnings, and press OK. Make sure that your props are off your quadcopter. It can be very dangerous if they're on. And this is where you're actually going to start doing your test. Notice on this quad, the motor numbers, for example, on the KK 2.1, motor 1 was the very front left. In this, for this controller, the motor 1 is the front right. So that's why you always have to look at these instructions very carefully, because they're not always the same. But let's go ahead, check motor 1, and it is working. It's working fine. Motor 1, motor 2 is working fine. Motor 3 working fine, and motor 4 working fine. So everything is working well from our motor standpoint. I got to tell you, I'm really impressed with this software. Okay, now that we've finished testing our motors, we can now go to the mounting, and it's now. I haven't done this yet, because we've just set our controller on. Once I know that I've obtained good connectivity, I can turn it on and off, and it will actually hover. I will now come back and do the fine tuning of where the controller and GPS mounts go, so that I'm guaranteed that when I do program my auto landing and return to home in advanced, it will work properly. So this I haven't done at this point. This is the receiver. I have a conventional receiver. The one thing that this controller, the Tarot ZYX-M, does not have, it does not have a PPM mode, which is frustrating, because I got to deal with all these wires. So it's no big deal. I prefer the one. I could get an S-Bus receiver, but I don't have one. I prefer PPM. Now S-Bus would be better because it's full digital, but they do have the DSM satellites that you can put in. But right now I've just used conventional, and I'm working from there. The one big change I have is the default when you get it is this ATT mode, which is attitude mode. I changed that so that the very first switch setting is manual mode. You have to be careful, because in manual mode you have full control, and it's the very first item on my switch. So it defaults on to manual mode. So I have to be very careful with that. But I want to work with it in manual mode to see how it works. And also, I mentioned earlier, in this first part of the demonstration, we're not going to be dealing with the compass, which is part of the GPS unit or the OSD, because it's just too much information. So you'll see that when we do the demonstration, that the switch for manual and attitude is important, so you know that things are changing because you have no other feedback. I don't know if that makes sense, but it will make sense when we actually do the test flight, and you can see that the controller is working properly when we flick the switch, because the colors will change. If we have it both in attitude mode, there will be no color change, and when you hit the switch, it won't change to anything, so you won't know you have good connectivity. That's why I did it. Anyway, okay, now one of the things we want to talk about is the difference between the immediate cutoff and the intelligent cutoff. take a very close look at how your system will shut down. Basically, the control start will be the same, but how it shuts off is very different between the immediate cutoff and the intelligent cutoff. And the manual will go through, I think there's about, with the intelligent cutoff, it depends on whether you're in what mode you're in, and whether you're flying under GPS or not GPS. So take a look at that. Immediate cutoff is basically using the CSC, the control stick and cutoff functions, where you pull the sticks down and away and back and down and towards the middle. There's 4 different ways of arming your quad. Take a close look at that in the manual. There's too much just to read, but I'm going to use the intelligent cutoff, and I may play with this back and forth. If I have in my other quads that have intelligent cutoff, sometimes the quad will be doing things and you're not quite sure what it's going to be doing. So I'll be playing with that. I just need to be very confident that when I do something, I want to see the quad doing what I expect it to do. So anyway, that's the difference between those two that you may want to take a closer look at in the manual. Gains, again, I'm going to be doing those adjustments after we've had some flights to do some fine tuning. And the mapping, and this is where we do our calibration. You can see that all my sticks are now moving in the right direction. Like I said, this software was a pleasure to work with. Very impressed. We're not going to be talking about the advanced, and that has the motor, failsafe, IOC, voltage, limits. We will talk about voltage. One thing I did do is, because I always rely on my voltage, so I did calibrate the voltage in the advanced so that the actual voltage matches the voltage on my radio. So I have that calibrated. Limits I have not set. This is the limits for its altitude and its radius. And then the tools. We're going to talk a bit about the tools. We've already mentioned about calibrating the accelerometer. And notice that I'm within my limits, that I have nothing over 10 or less than 9.6. So my accelerometer is okay. And we've already discussed what you need to do to calibrate your accelerometer. The one thing we haven't talked about is calibrating the gyroscope. And the gyroscope looks pretty good. But you can do the gyroscope with the unit attached to your craft just by calibrate the gyroscope. But we won't need to do that at this time because it's already calibrated. So that's it for the calibration. Make sure you write your parameters to your device. And now we're ready to actually go in to test everything out, make sure that the lights change, and that refers back to the manual and attitude control setup, and add some props and see if we can actually get any lift off of this. Okay, let's do a little bit of a test. This is a test in attitude hold. Now with attitude hold, you power on and then move your throttle right to the middle part. And then as you push up, it goes up. Then you push it back to middle to hold that position. Seems to be working really good. And you push it down to go down. And now I'm going to go down to manual mode. And the throttle has to be completely down, because now it's just like a normal throttle. Down is nothing. Up is, as you move up, it gets higher. Arm. And then you have to move it above 10% to keep the motors running. And then you're simply into manual mode. And good luck. It's a little bit hairier. Now I'm just going to put some rates on this here. 10% rate. And that's easier for me to fly anyway. And I got some ground wash, but there we have it. And power off. Okay, so now this completes this video for this part of the Tarot build, the ZYX-M. You can see from the flight video that the manual mode can get wild, but I was in a tight space and when you're out at a bigger flying area. But I had to change my rates to 50%, which is not controlled by this unit, which is controlled by the radio. The rates are all controlled by here. I changed my rates to, that was 50% rates, and it was still a challenge to hold it in that small area. So the attitude hold is definitely something you want to have with this quad. It's quite the powerful little beast. And you saw though with attitude hold that it worked very well. I guess the only tips I can tell you, when you're in manual mode, you arm your quad, the props will start spinning at low speed, and then as soon as you push up on the throttle, the motors will spin proportionally to how high you push up on the throttle. When you're in attitude hold, and in fact in the next video when we talk about the GPS and the return to home and the autopilot modes, when you power on, when you arm your quad, the props are going to start turning. You must turn your throttle up to the 50% area or it will stop. And then from there, follow the instructions for flying a quad of this type, because what you do is you simply push up until it moves up a bit and then push it back to the 50% mark. The halfway point of the throttle on attitude mode and GPS and return to home, the halfway point on throttle in those modes is stability mode. That's where it's going to hover. You push up on the stick, it'll move up and move it back to the middle for it to stop at that area. In manual mode, it's just like any other RC craft that you're used to. The more you push up on the throttle, the faster the motors will spin up and the higher you go. Any other points up to this point, other than the fact that the Tarot is probably one of the best that I've done as far as the assembly goes. Everything that they've said would happen has happened, which is a plus. Their software is well written. The English version is really good, so I'm impressed with that. You'll find that when we review some of the other controllers, it can get a bit hairy when you start looking at the manuals and the software to try to figure things out. But this was fairly straightforward. And on our next video, we will be adding the GPS, which will give us a compass function, and we'll be adding the OSD because I think that the OSD gives us a lot more information with regards to what setting is on our switch. So that's very much for watching part 2 of this Tarot build video, and please stay tuned for part 3 when we'll be talking about the GPS, which will give us our hold right in place, and that'll be the big test, right? I mean, the big test of using a GPS is that this thing stays in space, hovers, and basically stays in one spot. And for FPV, for any camera work, that's really what you want. I'm looking forward to getting that feature up and running. And also the OSD, so now we can start seeing what the quad is doing from the OSD standpoint. So if you like this video, please say like, and if you want more of these types of videos, please subscribe to my channel. The more subscribers I get, the better it is. And I have to tell you that the ladies over on the sewing side are beating you RC guys when it comes to subscribing to this channel. And I don't have that many quilting videos, so ladies and gentlemen who like RC crafts, please subscribe to the channels because I think a lot of them are ladies, some of them are men. I'm a man and I do quilting, but I think a lot of these people in the quilting field are kicking the RC field's butt. Anyway, thanks a lot, have a great day, and we'll see you next time at Emerald Meadows. Bye-bye.